Alrighty. I suppose it's time to tell you guys something that I rarely talk about. I've sat on it for years. I've sat on it for most of my life. I very rarely speak about this. I think in today's world of the US government only coming out 25 years late on some of their stuff, 30 years late compared to other countries who spilled the beans in the late 90s, early 2000s. Maybe I ought to spill a few beans on one of two experiences I had with encounters of the third kind, which I think you know who I'm talking about. I would like to point out that I saw a craft, and I was outside and a lot of people were inside a building. And I went in and I tried to alert these people, and by the time I got anybody to come out, the craft was gone. It took me a good 5 minutes to get anyone to come out. One person made the comment, "Oh, stupid kid." That same person, 3 years later or so, maybe 5 years later, but probably only 3 years later, experienced firsthand aliens walking outside their bedroom window. I would like to say to Troy Moritz, don't think you're the only one. Okay? So I'll show you what I saw. This was a Christian camp that our church went away to. This would commonly happen every year or two. It was a big setup with a bunch of dorms in about 4 different buildings with a big communal kitchen. And they would go away for a few days every year, like over a weekend or something. With this, I think it was even the school holidays, with this church. Everybody was playing family games and I couldn't give a shit. So I sat outside. At this point I was around, I believe, about 8 years old. I don't like all these gay little fun games. I was the only person standing outside. I was sitting on what is, for all intents and purposes, a park bench, because they had a little area with a bit of shade cloth with several of these in. For some reason I felt the need to look up. I looked up. There was a gum tree. There were several gum trees at the entrance of this place. This is probably about 40 metres. You're talking about 45 yards away from me. This is what I saw. That's a gum tree. It was some sort of a disc-shaped craft made up of multiple layers, about 5 deep, and around about the top 3 had windows. I can't remember if there's any light emanating from underneath it. I have a slight feeling there is, but I also have a feeling I may well be wrong. This thing sat there in complete silence, hovering maybe 10 feet above this tree. It was a serious tree, like it might have been, 40-foot tall tree. And this thing is just like sitting in midair. No engine noise, no emissions, no nothing. May or may not have been light in the bottom. It's so long ago. You're talking a lot of decades ago. I can't really remember this much. But there was windows. There was light emanating from the windows. I could see beings silhouetted against the light in the windows, walking past the windows, particularly on the middle level or one of the lower down levels. I was trying to understand why there were people in this craft and why these beings seemed to have very thin arms in their silhouettes against the light emanating from behind them as they walked past the windows. My 8-year-old mind couldn't work out why these were such thin-looking people But in the process of all this, I assumed it was just that the light was so bright that it was sort of almost curving around them, like when somebody's standing in car headlights. What I didn't realise was these were not people inside this craft. For the first time in my life, I was completely frozen in fear. I could not stand up, I could not move, I was just stuck like I was fucking glued to that park bench. After a good 30 seconds, 40 seconds of trying to move, I actually managed to move, and I ran inside to alert people that I had seen something and they should come outside. And of course they all stalled and fucked around for 5 minutes. I got about 4 or 5 people outside and it was gone. This happened probably around 1990 or somewhere around then. That's what I'm guessing. Yeah, maybe I was 9 years old. I think it was. I might have been 9, might have been 10. So 1990, 91, sometime around then. I've sat on this for fucking years and I don't mention it because, you know, thanks to the US government, you're apparently a kook if you've seen stuff that they openly talk about in other countries. But yes, what an experience. That was my first one, and I've had a second one probably about 5 years ago, 7 years ago. And I'll talk about my second one. It was fairly uneventful, but it was definitely UFO. And I'll talk about that in another video.